Welcome to Aspects of Writing. I'm your host, James Kelly. My co-host is Janet Corsi, and our guests for today's show are Sue Montgomery and TwoBears Medina. They are the authors of Itchy the Goat, and the topic of the show today is from scripts to children's books. But before we get started, we'd like to start with a few fun quips or quotes. And Jan, why don't you start?
I miss this segment, but yeah, here we go. A little girl is sugar and spice and everything nice, especially when she's taking a nap. And that's by Unknown.
All right, and Sue?
Frederick Douglass said, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men."
Okay. Mm-hmm. And TwoBears?
A child can ask questions that a wise man cannot answer. Unknown.
That's so true. And mine is, what is a home without children? Quiet. And that was Henry Youngman.
Yeah, I remember.
Our first guest is Sue Montgomery. Sue, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Texas.
Okay.
And I went to Texas Tech, studied journalism, studied some creative writing at Columbia College in Chicago, where I lived for 30 years.
Okay.
Before I moved here to Las Vegas 15 years ago.
Okay.
Wow.
In fact, go ahead, Jen.
I'm sorry. I was just about to ask her what got her started writing and why.
Well, I probably have been writing since I could print a letter. My mother was a journalist, and my grandfather had a political
newspaper.
So I think I came by writing
pretty naturally.
Yeah. And obviously, I wrote a lot when I was in college. One time, when I was in grade school, I wrote a poem, tried to write a poem, a Halloween poem, and I didn't do too well. I took it to Mother to write, and she did it, and then it was published in the school paper under my name. So I never did that again.
Uh-huh.
Well, and you write in several different genres.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I've written historical fiction, which is really kind of mainstream, and I just branched out into writing a children's book.
What was the first book you ever wrote?
The first book I ever wrote was Whisper in the Blood.
I think I know that one. And then you followed that up with?
Honor in the Blood.
Honor in the Blood.
Right.
And those are both historical fictions. And basically they take place in a setting that you're very familiar with because you lived in Chicago, like you said, for 30 years.
Right.
And that's where the setting is.
Correct.
Okay. And why do we call it historical fiction?
Because it is about the Irish and Italians in the early 20th century, how they did not get along. It is a true story, partially.
Right. It's based loosely on a true story.
Right.
And you have characters in that really did exist, like Al Capone.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes, I did a lot of research about Chicago at that point in time, so it would be accurate, streetwise. Characters, etc.
Will there be a third book based on this?
I don't know. People have wanted it, and I did actually start it, but I have not continued that.
All right. So I know you're writing with TwoBears with the children's stories. Do you have other books in the works?
Well, I am at the moment writing a book that's set in Texas, but that's going a little slowly, but it's a little different.
Where can we learn more about your work, Sue?
You can go to my Facebook page, which is Sue Harris Montgomery, and I also have a website, www.whisperintheblood.com.
And then they can go to honorintheblood.com.
Correct.
And then you also are on Amazon.
I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
And you go by S.M. Montgomery?
No, S.H.
S.H. Montgomery.
That's what my historical novels were, but with my children's book, I switched to Sue.
Good for you.
I don't know why I ever went to S.H. in the first place, but I did.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah, that's okay, though. So, a lot of people do that. So,
right.
All right. And our next guest is TwoBears Medina. And TwoBears, please tell us about who you are.
Well, my name is TwoBears.
We know that much.
People always ask me about my name, so I am Native American of the Apache tribe. So I think that first comes up in the topic of conversation is my name, and I was born and raised in Arizona, and in Colorado. Born in Arizona, raised in Colorado, and then back and forth. Went to Colorado University. have a PhD in psychology and human behavior.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
But I coached football most of my life, most of my career on the college and professional level. And I started, the reason why I started writing in the first place was because I wrote a personal story about my two nephews, and while I was coaching football.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Were they football players?
They were not. They were. I inherited a couple little kids. One wasn't even 2, and the other was barely 5. And they were just kind of left on my doorstep from my sister-in-law. And my brother and sister just had a falling out, and they went their own separate ways. And I ended up with 2 kids.
Well, that's
And-
kind of neat, though, that you
yeah.
took them in.
Yeah, and I had them for about 7 years. And so my first story that I wrote was about that experience while I was coaching football in Portland, Oregon.
Mhm.
And it's a story about how, being a young kid and all of a sudden being a dad, and then having the kids taken away from you after about 7 years from their mother.
Aw.
So it was a big drawn out court battle and all that.
Yeah.
So I wrote a story about it, and that's pretty much how I got
Now,
into writing.
Was it like an article for magazine or?
No, it was going to be a book about my experience with. It's called In the Red Zone,
Okay.
and it was just a book I was writing. So I went to a little seminar, and the person that was doing the seminar, I won't say her name, but I should probably talk to her before I start throwing her name out. But she said this would be a great movie,
Okay.
and so I decided to write it as a script.
Okay.
And I went to a few classes because I had no clue on how to write a script, but I found that it was actually easier to write than an actual novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, 190 pages, and then I cut it down to 110 or something like that. So I found that it was very easy, and so I went ahead and wrote it, and it did real well when I presented it. And she was a good connection, and so I presented it, and then it was they had purchased it.
Huh.
It was optioned, and so from then on, I just thought, wow, this is easy. I didn't.
You make
think
it
of
sound like it's so easy. Just go write a
Yeah.
script.
Well, the first one was easy because I think it came from the heart and it was
Right.
an actual experience.
True story.
Yeah.
And so it was easy to write, and it was easy to pitch because it was something that I experienced, and it was real drawn out. And so in the story, it's just about this young coach who has 2 kids who's trying to make it.
So, was it ever produced?
It has not gone to screen, and in fact, I've written 26 stories that haven't gone to screen, but have been optioned. And so, and that's the hard part about writing scripts, is that you could sell a script and it can sit on the shelf for 15 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I just became a victim of that.
Well, Fannie Flagg wrote Fried Green Tomatoes, and it sat on the shelf for 20 years before it was made into a movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's done all the time.
That's a lot of films.
Yeah.
I think Forrest Gump was the same way, and Quigley Down Under, I think that sat on the shelf for about 15 years before it came out.
Wow.
And so there's all these good movies that just not the timing. But there's also like 1 million plus spec writers is what we're called, because we don't actually work for a production company. And but they pay well. I mean,
Yeah.
when you do option one, you're not becoming famous or anything, but you got some good money, and so you really don't complain too much. You're
Right.
like, all right, the next one. But after a while, you're like, man, I really would like to see one of my films on the screen.
Now, do you write television scripts as well?
No.
No.
I have written some pitches,
Okay.
but only that's dealing with that would be a reality show dealing with a company that I own in Las Vegas, and that's actually gotten a lot of attention, but I've turned a lot of production companies down to do a reality show because they want to control you pretty much, you know, and so
That's the reality.
yeah, that is the
That's the
reality.
reality,
Like
right.
you just signed your life away.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have the creative writing rights and the merchandising rights and all that. And pretty much I just wanted to have everything, and and plus I just wanted it to be an authentic show. I didn't want it to be
Scripted, yeah.
you know, and so we've got a new pitch coming out that I think is probably actually going to go ahead and go forward. So, and it's called Tackle My RV. Yeah.
Okay.
And because I own an RV company called Apache RV Customs,
Uh-huh.
and we build interiors of Highline motor coaches. And it's really awesome. And since I was a football coach and I own this company, we wanted to pitch this to the NFL Network and see. And since the Raiders are coming to Las Vegas,
Yeah.
we were hoping that that this one actually catches fire, and I think it will, because everything's just kind of tying together, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And everybody's off RVing these days too.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
All right. So what inspired you to write your children's book, Itchy the Goat?
You know, I've been telling this little story about Itchy the Goat for my whole life. And I don't even know how he comes up. I think it just comes up in where are you from, and you know, those little conversations, and then I just tell this little story about how we had this pet goat when I was a kid, and the goat, you know, we had a couple wolf pups, and the goat grew up with the wolf pups thinking he was a wolf, you know, and he just thought he was one of the dogs, you know, and so I tell these little stories about how Itchy used to get in trouble, and he would always be the instigator, and you know, he just grew up to be a fun pet. Yeah. And so people have always said, you know, you should write a children's book because it's such a funny story, and I'll get calls from people that I hadn't talked to in 10 years, and they'll be like, oh, I miss your stories, I miss that poor Itchy goat, you know, and he, you know, and we just like start laughing, you know, and it's the one thing that people remember, a story that I've told from my childhood. And so one day Sue and I were working, and I've been writing scripts, movie scripts, and Sue was editing for me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And one day I was just telling her this story about Itchy or something, and she's laughing, and we're having a good time. And just out of the blue, I thought, you want to help me write a children's book because this is such a good story. And she's like, yeah, I would love to, because I think that she kind of, every now and then I would tell her a little different story about Itchy, and she just kind of fell in love with it. And so it wasn't easy to write, but it was easier to write with somebody who was enjoying the story.
Right.
Yes.
And that already worked with me, and, you know, we have a good rapport.
Yeah. Sue's been your editor for how long now?
About 8 years.
Okay.
Wow.
Is that?
Well,
We've known each other for about 10.
Close, yeah.
So I think
That's
she's
true.
been working
Off and on.
for me, for about 8 years.
Yeah.
Well, when you find a good editor, you don't let them go.
Yeah, it's true. You know, it's true. And she writes really good pitches, and it's something new for her. But I just kind of push her. You know, you can write this. Just write this.
She did.
You know, whatever I'm saying, just go ahead and write it, and then we'll look at it. And I've gone to film festivals and reading these pitches, and I've actually had a lot of success. So I tell her, you know, you're very good at writing pitches. We just got to make sure that, you know, we get the gist of the story, you know. And so we've been working together, and we just decided to go ahead and do this. And I think it became a project that we kind of got addicted to a little bit, because we were just going to write the one, and we ended up writing 5 with 5 more story ideas.
Yeah. So it's going to be a series of books about Itchy the Goat.
At least 10, and we'd like to get him as he's growing.
Maybe Itchy needs to become a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, we've got to ask you that.
Yeah.
Well, we
We've
did write a
written a
movie
pitch.
pitch for it,
Yep.
Aha.
and I'm actually going to be pitching that. in a couple weeks here, and Sue also wrote a pitch for her Whisper in the Blood.
Oh.
For Honor in the
Oh,
Blood.
Honor in the Blood.
Honor in the Blood, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're on a website called Story Rocket, and it goes to my website, which is Full Circle Scripts and .com, and you just can listen to all the pitches, and that's really for producers and directors and stuff. They go to these places to find your pitches, so I don't have to go to LA every single week.
I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
because I've done that. I've gone and pitched to LA, but my experience was strange in that you had to sign up. You go there, you sign up, you look at the different production companies that are there. You find the ones that are within the genre that you want to pitch to, and then you have a board, and then they tell everyone at the same time, go sign up your name under the producers you're interested in. Whoever gets there first, I guess they take 12. If they're full, you move to the next one and try and get your name on there. And then they call you one by one to give like a 5-minute pitch.
Yeah, they can do that unless you got an in somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
it's
not
really
easy.
like anything else. It's all on who you know. Not,
Yeah.
I mean, because I've heard some pretty bad pitches that have
Yeah.
actually become movies. And so it's like, oh, yeah, my cousin this and that. I'm like, okay. But
Next thing you know, they're on the screen.
Was that My Cousin Vinny?
yeah. That was actually a funny movie.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Great.
I love that movie. But I think the last story Sue had helped me on was a story called Future Imperfect.
Right.
Yeah, and that was it's a sci-fi story about time travel and the pyramids and stuff, and so it did real well at Austin Film Festival. But the last pitch we wrote that I haven't even written one. I've written maybe 2 scenes on that. The story actually got a lot of interest. Was a story called Coaching for Meatballs. And that's a story about when I went to Sweden. I was the Swedish head football coach for the football team.
Okay.
And I went to Sweden for a few seasons and coached the American football team there.
Okay.
Which it's not, football's not popular over there. So your best receiver is like 40 years old, and you're finding players have your can going to the third and second string of soccer and hockey, But we ended up winning the championship, and we ended up being a very successful team. And so the story is about me coaching these Swedish kids to a championship,
But they're not kids.
Yeah, which they've never seen. Well, the thing is that I had 4 teams to coach. Well, I thought I was just going to go coach the pro team, and when I got there, I ended up having the U15 team, like the kids that are in junior high and high school and the college level, and then the pros, all under the same flag.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I was like having practice all day,
No
every
kidding.
day, and then having to break it up, and then on Saturday I'd have 2 games I'd have to go coaching, and Sunday I had 2 games I had to coach in. Yeah,
Wow.
so it was
around
a
the
job.
clock.
Yeah, it was a real job, but I came up with a good system, and it was successful. We had a lot of success. Our average offensively, our average score was 52 points a game.
Whoa.
And yeah, we put up like 3 goose eggs on defense during the season, so we did real well. And my job was, I felt my job was to get a Swedish coach to take over the team, because I felt it's important that it's a Swedish coach, not an American coach. And my best friend, who turned out to be a guy who I had to talk into working for me there in Sweden, because he was mad at the team. They couldn't win anything. The team had been established since like 1989, and they couldn't win, go even into a playoff game. They couldn't even have a winning season. And so he was done, He's like, I'm not going to do this. So I had to go and basically talk him into it, and we ended up having a very special friendship, and he loved the game, and so he ended up becoming the head coach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they have had continued success even though I had left. So I was really happy about the whole
So
thing.
how long were you in Sweden?
About 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it was a good experience. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting and funny too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's why I wanted to write the story, you know,
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
and then I thought, well, a good name would be Coaching for Meatballs, because that's pretty much, you know.
Title is everything, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I pitched that at the Austin Film Festival, and it just, honestly, I had to leave the Austin Film Festival early because of the attention I got.
Wow.
Yeah, and I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
And naturally, I'm a shy guy, so it was kind of funny. I couldn't even eat dinner with people coming up and you know, asking for an autograph or.
Oh,
you know,
my
stuff like that.
goodness.
That's
Wow.
so cool.
Yeah, it was kind of fun because I met Shane Black. He's the writer of all the Lethal Weapon
Uh-huh.
and the Good Guys and those stories, and I just wanted to get a picture with him, and so I walked up after his seminar, and I walked up right away because I sat in the front just because I wanted to get a picture, you know, and shake his hand and tell him, you know, the Good Guys is one of my favorite movies, right? So I walked up there to shake his hand, and people just started coming up, and they were like, Two Bears, yeah, that was such a good pitch, and all this.
Gosh.
Just pat me on the back, and I'm like, oh, thank you. And all of a sudden, he goes, who are you? And I go, nobody.
I'm a pitcher.
I just pitched a movie, man. And he's like, what? Wow, we got to get together later. And I'm like, okay, you know. So it turned out to be really, really cool. You know, it turned out to be really
fantastic.
fun. And, but like I said, I mean, you're right. It was. Everybody got the title right away. You know?
Yeah.
That title
Yeah.
is very catchy.
Yeah. And then the pitch was well written and well thought out, and it just I didn't think that I was gonna go anywhere with it, but I wanted to come in under the radar and see how it would do, and yeah, it was really popular, and I was really happy.
That's
So,
interesting. When you come up with your other works, how long do you spend on trying to create a title for it?
Sometimes I create a title first before I do anything. Yeah.
Okay.
And then later maybe the title evolves on how the story goes. But usually I have it all in my head.
What about you, Sue?
I did the title first too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And then
I don't.
No.
No. As a matter of fact, I messed up on one. And it's interesting what you're talking about, because the book that I'm getting ready to put out, The Alien Transcripts, originally I wrote it as Creating God. And what I didn't think about is that how will people perceive that title? And a
Yeah,
lot of people
right.
perceived it as being blasphemy.
Mm.
So I thought, well, you know, it isn't. It's science fiction. It's fiction. But how can I, you know, possibly get it back out there in a different way? And so it's now called The Alien Transcripts.
Mm.
So, which
That's
is really
cool.
what the book's about. So, yeah.
Yeah, but it is important that title. And every time I write a script, I'd really just think that the title, I just want to picture that title on a movie poster or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of how I do it. And I think about, you know, how are people going to react to it? And like in every story I've written, that's really how I come up with the title. I think the only story that kept evolving the name was Future Imperfect.
Yeah. That was a hard one.
Yeah, that one just after it was written, finally I decided on the final title.
Mm-hmm.
But it just every time we wrote it, we'd go back and I'd just think, well, the title started off The Life and Times of Adam Bybee. That was the
That's
name.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it just didn't make sense
We
no
like-
more.
Like the name Bybee, but it didn't even stay
But
in the
who
movie.
is it? Yeah.
Well, yeah. Who is it in the movie,
Yeah.
right? And Adam Bybee was a college friend of mine.
We like
And-
the name.
Yeah, and he said, I wrote a short story when I was in college about a guy who had Tourette syndrome
Okay.
called Stop Looking at Me, right? And it was just a short story that I read that for English, you know, and it got a lot of attention. And they did a little short play on it. The drama class did.
Uh-huh.
But for the research, I just got on buses and pretended I had Tourette syndrome to,
Oh
see,
my
to see
goodness.
how people would act. And people were really nice. Like I
Yeah.
would say the most offensive things ever.
And they were nice to you.
Yeah, they would just be like, you know, and then I guess they'd figure it out. But they were just like, okay, you know. And so I did a lot of research on Tourette syndrome, but it was more of it was more about people who, because I had a friend that people used to pick on, and because he looked different, and he used to say that I wish people would stop looking at me,
Yeah.
and so that was the title I used, and then so my friend, getting back to what we were talking about, my friend says, hey, if you ever write a story, you need to name it after me. And so I just sat there, and I think Sue said, what are you calling this? And I was like, how about The Life and Times of Adam Bybee? Because that was his name.
And I like that name.
Yeah.
It's cute.
Yeah, it is a
It's
good
different.
name.
Yeah. And so and then I wrote the story, and it was like, that doesn't make sense
He's
anymore.
not even in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so but that's the only one that the name evolved.
And Jan, yours went through several changes too.
Yeah, see, and I wrote my title first, and then I wrote my book.
Mhm.
And,
But the title changed.
But then, then the title changed completely. But when I wrote my second book, I did the title first, and it hasn't changed.
That's interesting. When I write, I never think about a title. A lot of mine's based on dreams, so maybe that's why.
That could be.
Because I get up in the morning and I'll write down what I was dreaming. So maybe that's the reason why I don't have a title. Although the title comes when I'm writing the outline, I do immediately give it a title. So.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes people struggle with that title. I don't really struggle with a title. I guess I see it before I start seeing the story.
Well, he has a great imagination anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
I've never had a problem
do.
with coming up with a title except for Creating God, which I still like the title. But, you have to go with who your audience is. So.
Yeah.
That's right.
But, and that's kind of surprising to me because when you see the picture on the front of the book, that almost tells you that it's going to go another direction. But people are so sensitive.
Yeah,
Yes.
they are. But I used to work at a major hotel, and I remember taking the book in when it came out in 2005, and I set it down for people to look at, and I walked away, and I heard people say, don't read that book. That's blasphemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was offensive to me, and I took it to heart, and I realized, you know what? Maybe you should learn from this.
Right.
Find out what people are going to react to before you put it out there.
It's true.
But yeah, so people wouldn't even read the book just based on the title.
Yeah, and you don't want to fall on your face before you get started.
Well, even
No.
my books sound like they're murder mysteries or something, which they aren't.
Right. Whisper in the Blood,
Yeah.
Honor in the Blood.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the good title, so.
Very good titles.
Yeah, I actually like your title, Whisper in the Blood. That one catches me more than Honor in the Blood for some reason. I don't know why, but they're both good books.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Honor in the Blood's more like Dishonor in the Blood.
Yeah, right. It is.
Yeah. Go change the title.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about the topic of the show is from scripts to children's books, and I'm just curious. Well, you've kind of answered a lot of it. How you went from writing scripts into the children's genre. It wasn't something you planned.
No, not
It was
at
just
all.
in telling a story.
Yeah, I think we came to a stopping point on a script, and I think I just started talking about that story, and then it dawned on me one night, I wonder if Sue would be interested in doing this children's book. And I knew that if I did it alone, that it would take longer, because I read how do you write a children's book, number one, right?
Right.
Plus, I don't have kids, but I like kids. I think I like being around kids. I like
He does.
and
He's great.
I like feeding them chocolate and finding another one, and then sending them back to their parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 But I think kids are awesome, and I like to listen to kids when they talk, because they have a certain little imagination in everything they say.
do.
Yeah.
So I look in their eyes and I just let them talk, and I think it's very important. And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and Sue, you've never written children's stories before.
No.
So where did you get the concept for the format? Like, how did you do? Did you?
Well, we started doing some research, and Sue said, we need to read 100 children's books. Remember when you said that to me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
We
said,
needed
"Good
to go
luck."
look at children's books. My children are long grown.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So it's been years since you read a children's book.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we just started going to the library and Barnes and Nobles, and we just started kind of reading children's books here and there. And the format, I think, just was an accident. I think we started writing, and then it started rhyming for some reason.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then we thought, maybe we should just rhyme this book and see what happens.
I think we
Yeah.
sort of decided what age group, though,
Yeah.
before we really
Mhm.
started writing.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's clever.
Yeah, we thought 3 to 7, 3 to 6, something like
Yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
And as we started rhyming, it just started flowing
Mhm.
better. And so we started looking at some rhyme children's books and the success of them,
Mhm.
and how they were packaged and those type of things and the illustrations. And that's when I realized that this is something that is very special right now.
Mhm.
And then we started the critiquing of it after we wrote a couple. And Sue had taken it to your critique group, and you can talk about that, Sue.
Yeah, well, they didn't have a lot of critique for it. I mean, they really loved it.
Mhm.
Then there were a few suggestions, which was good because there's a teacher in the critique group that,
Yeah.
you know, has young kids
Yeah.
that she teaches. So that was very helpful.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
After that,
I don't know, you know, well, I do the typing, but we do work together. I mean, we talk
Yeah.
about what Itchy's going to do or whatever, and
Mhm.
but I will say this: if somebody's ambitious enough to take on this type of project, you better have time to do it,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
better be in
Yeah.
a place where you're able to just hunker down and do it, because it takes like maybe 2-3 minutes to read that book,
Yeah.
but it took us like probably almost 3 weeks, 8 hours a day to write those books. Like you would show up like at, well, maybe like 6 hours a day. You'd show up like at 10 o'clock.
well, not just the first book, but do you think it took that long?
Oh
really?
yeah, I have it all written down. Yeah, so I'm like, I
Okay.
wonder how long this takes. That's another thing. Time just gets
It
away from you,
does.
and you don't even know how much time you spent on it. But I would log it in to the computer. I have a IT assistant guy that works for me, and he would log in when you would come in and then when you would leave, because I wanted to see the time we spent on it. And we're probably about 6 hours a day on it for about 3 weeks. And that was on the first book. And then she started critiquing it. And then we had to rewrite a couple things, not much, which was very, it just encouraged me a little more. Because I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, people like this. And it was just the words.
Mhm.
So at that point, we were happy with it. We wrote a few more. She got those critiqued. And the others came quicker.
Yes, they
We
did.
didn't spend as much time because now we kind of had our format. Sue went and bought a rhyming book. I listened to some
In
rap.
case we needed help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because we would get stuck, what rhymes with this word? And then this.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this book was real helpful because it show like 4 or 5 words that would rhyme with it that meant the same.
Mhm.
So we did real good. So I would say the 5th book, we kind of breezed through the 5th one. We'll probably go back and redo a little bit, but we were really happy with it. And then we thought, well, now we need an illustrator,
Mhm.
Yeah. How'd you come up with your illustrator?
Well, we put some fillers out there. So I had a publishing company. I sent it out. Had a publishing company talk to me about it, and they wanted it, but they didn't want certain things about it, and they wanted to make him look like a little boy with a
Oh,
baseball
yeah.
cap.
instead of
And-
just a goat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. And they sent me some sample drawings of their illustrator, and I didn't like it. And I was like, no, that's not my vision. But it was more like, we don't care about your vision.
No, and that's
Right?
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just,
They don't.
yeah.
Yeah.
We only care about what we can do
Sales.
with it.
Right.
And I thought, well, what you going to pay me if I'm going to sell out here?
Mhm,
It
right.
better be ridiculous. And it wasn't. And I was like, what? Get out of here, you can't pull somebody's, I don't know if it was a dream, but it was sure something that I was always on my mind. But you can't rip that from somebody and then make it completely something
That's
else
right.
and then demand that they do everything for it,
Right.
Yeah.
And so we just, I decided that wasn't the route I want to go. And we thought, I'm just going to put some fillers out for an illustrator.
Did you offer sketches of any kind
To
for the illustrators that
Yeah.
Real pictures, not
real
sketches.
pictures.
Oh, real pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
Like of a goat.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we put it out there. I put it out on Facebook, and then some other ads where you can post you're looking for an artist, an illustrator. And we got a lot of response, but I kind of wanted to keep it local. Because I figured, man, this town's got a lot of people in it. There's
Yes, a
gotta
lot
be
of talent here.
somebody that
Well,
can-
and plus it's easier to work with someone if they're local.
yeah,
Right, yeah.
that's what I thought. And so we found a really, really cool guy, and he started drawing. He gave us some samples, and they were okay. We weren't real happy with it,
Mm-hmm.
but we liked him. He was a really cool dude.
Yeah.
But it really didn't fit the vision we were looking for.
Been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to paint Itchy, not draw.
Right.
So I thought, yeah, whatever. Let's see what happens. And so there was a lot of interest. Right away, you just start turning people away because it's, not what you see. So I just put it on my Facebook one day, looking for illustrator. This is a real job, blah, blah, blah.
Just in case they don't get it right.
This is a paying job, because people. And then I got a lot more interest, but I got a lot better artists, it seemed like.
Uh-huh.
And they just, a lot of people right away just, oh, I really want to do this. I want this project. The story sounds so awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then this guy that I coached with about 10 years ago, coached college football with, who I remember him always doing sketches of the players
Okay.
walking off the field or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Like he used to carry this little thing on his in his shirt, little notepad, and he would draw these really cool sketches. And then he would make them bigger and give them to them,
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought, yeah, Dave, you should be an artist. Nah, whatever. Well, he gets a hold of me and he says, hey, my daughter is an artist.
Oh, wow.
She would love this. And I'm like, well, which one? So he tells me Nicole, right? And I remember Nicole being like 10 years old. So,
right, that's
what I
it.
mean?
The vision you have in your
Yeah.
mind.
I'm like, what are you talking about? She's only 10, And he's like, well, that was like, 10 years ago. But so I said, all right, here, I'm going to send her some stuff and see if she can do it. And the minute she sent it back, we were in love with it.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
super.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. Like, I didn't even question it.
That's all right.
And so I got a hold of her right away and told her, we love this. Your sketches are spot on, exactly what we wanted. And then after that, we wrote a contract and sent it to her. And she is like the most professional person ever that I've ever worked with in anything I've ever done.
So cool.
Yeah.
So polite, so just right on time, asks the right questions, takes constructive criticism, just the best artist you can work for. But she's young, so I'm like, okay, we better mold her our way,
Yep.
And then we did our storyboard, and we sent it to her, and she just started pumping them out, just right scene after scene, and then the real work begun. I mean, it just seemed like work after that.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, when we were in my office writing this, it was work, but we were having a good time,
Right,
enjoying, and then it just got to where sometimes Sue and I were yelling at each other, like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "We got to slow down here because now it's real work now."
Yeah.
Yeah. It got real.
Yeah, and so
I remember what I went through with the illustrations, and mine took 18 years to get in.
goodness.
Yeah, 18 years to get where it is now. But I remember the first illustrator I had was someone who had never illustrated before, and she was very good. But as time went on, and everyone told her, because we do know that, and I admit it as the author, that the pictures can make the story. But as time went on, everyone told her how great she was. She wanted more money.
More.
She wanted more
More.
this. She wanted more and more and
Yeah.
more. And I finally said, you know what? I think that's enough of this. The second illustrator I went through was a college student. And I swear, and she was paid as well. But when she would show up with the illustration, she'd have like half of it done, but it wasn't colored in. And I'd say, well, that's fine, but I really need to see the whole vision here.
Yeah.
So then she'd come back the next time, and a page was tattered, and the other one was half done. And I'd say, what happened there? And she goes,
Wow.
oh, my dog got a hold of it.
Oh,
Then the
gee.
next time, oh, my brother got a hold of it. I finally thought, this isn't going to work.
No.
My third illustrator, fantastic. And they happened to be friends of mine. And then I think she had done like 4 illustrations, really, really great. And her husband called me one day. And he's crying, and I said, oh, I'll be over in a few minutes. And he's telling me the story about how his wife ran off with his brother.
Oh, dear.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, can you give me that number where I can call her?
What's your brother's number?
But I thought, no, I better not do that to him.
Wow.
Oh, my.
That's hilarious.
And then it's just by circumstance that, Jan's on my show, and we were talking one day about, I'd love to get this children's story out. And she says, my future daughter-in-law, she does graphic artwork. Maybe she'd be interested. And I just gave her the sketches that I had, and she just created it from what I had. And it was,
Oh,
I'm very happy with what she did.
Yeah,
it's
that's great.
fantastic, yeah.
Mhm. So it is an interesting journey that we
It
go
is.
through. Everyone thinks you write the story, you draw the pictures, and then just put it out.
Yeah.
Not even.
And it's so much. But I will tell you what's different about the writing process for me. I wrote my story in 1 hour, and I did write it in rhyme as well. But mine was not something that I planned on doing. I never planned on writing a children's story. It was just something that I was sitting there one day. I was in a weird mood, and I just sat down and I wrote it. Now, it has been edited a couple times in the sense that sometimes you use the same word when you're trying to rhyme, because mine's in rhyme as well.
Yeah.
And so, I'd say, well, you already have that word in that stanza, so you really can't end that, that way. But other than that, I really wrote that in 1 hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for
and-
you.
Yeah,
As a
that's
mother-
awesome.
Yeah. As a mother, I can tell you, when you're reading your kids' books at night when they're going to sleep, that rhyme thing helps them go to sleep
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And then as they're learning to read, that rhyme thing also shows them 2 words that are similar
Hmm.
that helps them to learn to read. So it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
It's a great way to go.
There aren't a lot of books that rhyme today,
Yeah.
No.
for the most part.
No,
I don't know
right.
why we decided to do that. I think because going back to my poetry, when my mother wrote it, I'm trying to make up for
Probably.
that.
It's a possibility because
Fine
we
job.
kind of just fell into it.
Yeah, great
But
job.
the kids
We
love
did.
it. When we read
Yeah.
to the kids, they
Yeah.
are captivated.
The-
They're,
Yeah.
And I think part of it is the rhyming.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing that's different, though, and I think you guys approached it the right way. I didn't approach mine in any way because I just sat down and wrote it. It wasn't ever intended. I never thought of it being a book when I wrote it. So the one thing that you did right that I had not done is that you do have to be careful about how many words you write,
That's
Yeah.
true.
especially if you're reading to grade school kids.
Yeah.
Mine is not a story. A grade school student could read mine, but it's not something that you could read in 5 or 10 minutes. It's something that, I remember in class, I remember books like Charlotte's Web, the teacher would read that to us.
Uh-huh.
Mine's not that long, but it is a book that someone would probably, if you're going to do it in a class, you would have to, give it half hour
Yes.
in
Sure.
order to, because it's a little bit longer. It's a lot more wordy than yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we looked because there only were so many words that age group in a book
We'll understand.
had.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got to comprehend it.
Yeah.
And we book a lot of daycares and elementary schools
Mm-hmm.
to do the readings.
Mm-hmm.
And we ask questions at the end about the book, and I'm so surprised how they have such a great memory. And I think a lot of it is just because it rhymes, and the illustrations are so great that they just remember a lot in the book.
The rhyming is what is important because, again, it's like a song, like you were talking about rapping.
Yeah.
You know, everyone can remember a song. They can remember a rap, or they can remember the words to a song.
Yeah.
So I think that helps as well, and that's why they're probably comprehending it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great. We've had a lot of fun with it. A lot of fun with going to
The only
the
bad
school.
thing about rhyming we've discovered is that it doesn't translate to other languages. So only
yeah.
English-speaking kids can
Yeah.
Yeah.
read it,
Yeah.
or parents, you know.
You would have to have someone who could
Because-
break it down.
Well,
and-
it just doesn't come out the same, though,
Yeah.
you know.
That's true.
So, but that's okay. We're
Yeah,
going to do okay.
There's a lot
with-
of English-speaking
That's
countries.
right. Exactly.
Plenty of English speaking.
We decided
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Sweden's one of them.
Yeah. Sweden's easy. Yeah. Exactly. It's getting popular over there, actually.
Good.
But it's really popular with Chinese people.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
the goat
Yeah.
for some reason.
Yeah.
They really
Oh,
like the
yeah.
goat.
Yeah.
We get a lot of likes, and I have in my business, I have a wall that has Itchy the Goat on it, and you can buy the book. And everybody buys a book when they come in.
Uh-huh.
So
that's
I
nice.
sell a lot of books there. It's really interesting.
Well, that's cool.
And we have quite a few Chinese customers, and they just love it. And they're taking pictures of it, and they're sending it to people in China and stuff like that. And then on our Facebook, we have a lot of, if I boost something, a lot of Chinese people they love Itchy the Goat. And so I'm wondering what it would take to market it to the Chinese
Well, they
community.
speak English too.
Yeah.
A lot of countries do have,
Yeah.
second and third languages, and English is usually one of them.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure China.
Okay.
China
I have a
does for
friend who
sure.
was from Beirut who took his bar exam in English.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So,
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but we're really happy with it so far. I haven't met somebody who has disliked it. I've met many people who have just. I read this to my grandkid every
Right.
night. You know,
Yeah.
every night she's got, and she even wants to hear the part with the authors'
know, right?
bios and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really fun.
You know,
Yeah.
that's something that it's kind of you would think would be unusual, but my daughter from the time she was really tiny could tell you the author, the illustrator,
Yeah,
the copyright date.
Really?
It was just bizarre.
yeah.
That
I can't
is.
remember the author's name or
Yeah.
the
Right.
even sometimes the title, but she always could give me every bit of it.
Yeah, I find they want to
Interesting.
hear everything. We read
Yeah.
to a really big class one time, and I think we sold like 54 books to this one class in one sitting, in one reading. And afterwards, we were sitting there signing them. We were there for like an hour just signing books.
Yeah.
And the kids kept coming up, and they wanted more read from it, like what does this say? You know, the copyright and the
Wow.
the authors and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I had to sit and tell them, well, that's what that says. It's about Sue, and I would read it. You know, oh, neat, I love it, and then they'd
Oh,
run off,
wow.
and another little group would come over and ask
Yeah.
some more crazy questions. It was funny, but and even reading to the older kids, because I've been to a couple older classes where the kids are like, 12 and 13, and they're captivated,
Mhm.
and so I'm like, well, I'm going to talk about how to write a book and how to come up with an idea with these kids. So I'm looking at their faces while I'm reading, and they're just smiling and staring at the pictures. And then at the end, I just asked, so did you guys like it? Oh yeah, we love it. And yeah, how did you come up with this and that? And so reading to kids that are about 12 to like 15, they really are interested in writing and how to write a book.
Right.
And
Yeah.
when you present something that seems simple like that, they're very interested.
We had a young lady on we interviewed, I guess, a couple months ago, Katrina Kusa, and she's only 13, and she's already written 3 books,
Oh, sweet.
2 children's books and 1 young adult book.
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
kids really are. In fact, I have another one on a lady named, her last name, Dr. Lund, and her son, who's 10, just finished his first children's book, and they're going to be on in a few weeks. So kids really can get in tune with this and do it,
Yeah.
and I encourage it. I really do
Yeah.
Oh,
encourage
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a niece that's 8, and she's read over 100 books already.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
really proud of that.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
That's something to be proud of.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah.
And so she wants to. next time I book a reading, she wants to go and read to the kids herself.
Oh, that,
So I thought that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would
no
be neat.
kidding.
Yeah, we were talking about how to market our book. I haven't started marketing mine at all, and well, little bits here and there. And Jan was talking about finding someone to read the book. I don't feel like I would be good at reading it. That's just the way I feel. But then we thought, there's a perfect person we could get to do this. We don't need to do that ourselves. We can get someone else to go in and read it. So when you guys go into the school, who does the reading?
We take turns.
You take turns?
Yeah.
And show the pictures.
Yeah, one will show the pictures, and I guess sometimes it depends, because if there's more boys in the class, I'll read. Because Sue has this really soft little voice.
Yeah, she does.
And I can't say, now it's time to read.
Yeah.
Because he gets them all excited.
Yeah.
He peps them up like just before a football game.
Yeah, I do. It's kind of funny.
When you ask questions or talk about something as you go along, then they all start, and you have to get them calmed down again, to continue.
Yeah. But I like them to interact.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's fun.
I think that's great.
Yeah, it's fun.
Because in the story, it just, Itchy's playing with chicken, or trying to play with chickens and pigs, and riding roller coasters and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's kind of things that some of these kids have done.
Right.
And so I ask them that, who's played with a pig? And some of the kids say the craziest stuff.
Oh, they do.
I played with a unicorn, they're just, it's crazy stuff. It's funny, and so I just kind of let them go a little bit. Yeah.
Let their imagination go.
Yeah.
But then they calm down, and I read the next thing. But they relate to it because they've all been in those most of them have been have seen something like that and can relate to it, especially the ride part, like Itchy's on a boat, Itchy's on a roller coaster, and so they can relate to that because they've all been to Legoland or something like that.
Right.
And so it's kind of fun, and then they talk about, I was scared, and some of them, I wasn't scared, and I've never been on a boat, but I will, and then they go off, and I ate a peanut butter jelly sandwich this morning. Okay, and my dad snores, and it's just funny. They didn't say the funniest stuff. I just laugh. Sometimes I gotta get my composure because I almost want to just start
laughing.
Up,
But that's the one thing, because I read your book while we were waiting to start the show, and yours is kind of a fun and lighthearted book. And I think there's a difference in children's perspectives as well, as far as the way we write. Yours is fun and lighthearted, and I have to say mine is not. Mine basically is lessons.
But that's what a lot of parents want too, is a lesson with their book. But
we made it fun and a little bit like we have the one little caterpillar who tells Doogie, slow down, you wait for me, and it is lessons, life's lessons, like crossing the street, crossing the sidewalk for the caterpillars. So it is all in what you're trying to convey. And so I think it's important to know how to, when you're reading to them, like you said, you listen to them, I played with a unicorn or whatever, have fun with that. So it's probably going to be different for us when we go out there to present it. It's going to be a little more serious.
Yeah.
Because there might be kids who've been bullied or whatever, and then probably give them a chance to talk about it or something.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, but you'll find that a lot can relate to it. Yeah.
Sure.
They'll listen. I think you could read anything to them, and they'll just sit there and listen, and then make a comment that actually relates to it. Because they're, kids. I think kids go through a lot nowadays.
Yes, they do.
And even being at a daycare for however long, 5-6 hours. That teacher, you got to take your hat off to those people because the energy, the balls of energy these kids are, and Sue's right. If you just get them going for a second, forget about it.
I know.
Sometimes I'll be reading and I'll just be silly and I'll be like, look what a little baby goat he is, dude. Who wants to pet him? And all of a sudden I got a rush of kids on me. Shoot, I shouldn't have done that.
You asked for it.
All right, and then at the end, they all want a hug.
They do. Or
that's cute.
They just come up and start hugging you and high fives and stuff, and you sit there and think, wow, they really appreciate it. It's nice.
Yeah.
Or they even come up that itchy because he's itchy because of the hay. And one
Yeah.
little girl said, "The grass makes me itch." When
Yeah.
after it was over,
Yeah, it's so funny.
It's so cute.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun, and I think that we've had a lot of success with the book. And we did do a learning edition early on. We did 100 books that were learning edition, and you had to find the 3 misspelled words and color a page, and then you could send it in and get a Itchy the Goat Friends of Itchy patch,
Oh,
and those sold out in a heartbeat.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
That's a great idea.
And
Yeah.
we're planning to do all of them
yeah. We
with
wanna-
something.
with some kind of learning.
It was kind of a test.
Mhm.
to see.
That's great.
Yeah, and even now people and we're sold out of them. We don't even have any more. That's the one book people ask for.
Mhm.
They'll be like, I want one of those hardback learning editions. Oh, yeah, they don't exist. But it was a good test,
Yeah.
and we were really surprised that that people wanted that. When you told them it's a learning edition, they were drawn to it right away.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
bet teachers
Yeah.
were really drawn to that
Yeah,
as
they
well.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Because
really-
anything to help, capture the kids' attention and teach something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids can read early. Like
They can. Yes, they
it's pretty
can.
amazing.
Well, my hat's off to all the teachers out there.
Oh, I
Education was my
agree.
background, and I was going to be a teacher. And I
Yeah.
went to my first orientation class, and I changed my mind.
yeah. I was a
Yeah.
high school counselor for like 2 years, and I was like, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
This is crazy. But I know where you're coming from. Yeah. I mean, I'm even at that level, those little kids, like, how do you just keep them entertained all day long?
I had 21 2-year-olds.
Oh,
I
wow.
did this for 2 years.
Really?
That was probably
wow.
amazing.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
You
I
must
can-
have had some energy.
That's a
I
tough.
can march like nobody.
Yeah, I believe it.
Well,
I believe it.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We're down to the
Mhm.
last minutes of the show. So, Sue, again, where can we learn about your books?
Where you can find them.
Yes.
Well, they're available on Amazon and through me.
shmontgomery.com.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Whisperintheblood.com, honorintheblood.com.
Correct.
All right. And Two Bears, where can we learn about you and your books or your book?
You could go to itchythegoat.com
Okay.
and Itchy the Goat on Facebook.
All right.
We also have a signing at Barnes & Noble's on the 20th,
First.
the 21st,
Right.
yeah, the 21st of this month from 1 to 4.
Okay.
And
Is that the one in Henderson?
Yes, on
Yes,
Stephanie.
on
Marvelous on
Correct.
Stephanie.
Yeah, and there's an actual reading at 1 o'clock. So they have a children's reading time.
Right. They always
for
have that. Yeah.
about half hour or something.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to go there and listen to the reading and get a book signed, then that's what we'll be.
Mm.
And you could also go to frogpiepublishing.com and find the book there.
Okay. All right. And were you traditionally published, or did you self-publish, or how
We
did that?
self-published.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so we turned away the publishers because we thought, like I was saying, they didn't want to give us anything, and they didn't even want to give me the merchandising rights.
So that's your publishing
Oh,
company.
yeah.
then?
yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, good. All right, so I'd like to thank TwoBears Medina and Sue Montgomery for being on the show. And you can find on our website, we'll have the guest pictures there in the book, and they can click on those images. It'll take them to your websites
Great.
and to the book. Just go to aspectsofwriting.com. You'll also find videos of this on youtube.com. Just go to youtube.com/aspects of writing once the show airs. And then we archive the show on aspectsofwriting.com. In addition to that, you can listen to the show on iHeartRadio, iTunes. We have like 14 terrestrial stations. You can look on the website at Aspects and find those. And we're on other stations as well. So just go to Aspects of Writing, go to the middle, over to the right. You'll see where all you can listen to Aspects of Writing. This show airs on amfm247.com at 1 o'clock on Saturdays. It also rebroadcast on Blog Talk Radio. Just go to blogtalkradio.com/Aspects of Writing on Sundays at 9 p.m. So until next week, this is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, if you can dream it, you can write it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank
Great
you.
Thank
show.
you.